Good afternoon, Line Golf Academy members. I know it is not 6 o'clock Pacific, and I know there's probably going to be nobody on this live stream just because we're going 2 to 3 hours early. But like a moron, I forgot we're doing a tree lighting ceremony tonight in downtown. So I am going to be busy. And rather than miss another week, making it 3 weeks in a row we missed, I just went live early. If you're going to join on, hop on. If not, I totally understand. So don't expect any of these people to be watching right now, but at least we got it going on. So if you're watching this now at 6 o'clock when you're supposed to be live, it is a recorded session, but we're live right now at 2:45 p.m. First on the screen, we have Morgan. Morgan sent me this email earlier today, earlier this week. Can you take a look at my swing? I used to be a 9 handicapper, gone up to 11.7, had lessons, but a coach has never brought this up. But I think I dip up and down too much, which results in the odd miss. But timing needs to be good. Cheers. Okay, we're going to take a look and let's just watch this. Okay, I definitely see what you're talking about. Going up and down. Yeah, up and downs, it just depends on your flexibility. Most of us, we start to stand up because we're not able to stay in our posture. So I know this is the only view you sent me. If you do have a face on and you want me to take a look at the face on, go ahead and send that to me for next Sunday. We can take a look at the face on, but we'll take a look at what we have here. And also for those that do send me videos, please try your best to try and take this from down the foot line, because when you deal with angles, it's very important to try and take it so it's a straight down the line, so we can help explain some of this so you can understand it more. But we're going to take a look at this big bend forward. That is called your forward bend. I've heard other angles, secondary spine angle, primary spine, who knows? There's just so many names out there, but this for me is your forward bend. And basically what you're telling your body from this point is how you better stay in this posture throughout a majority of your swing. Now, the problem with this is we're not strong enough and we're not flexible enough to stay in our swing. Let me see if we got in your body. Give me a sec here. To stay in our swing. So usually when we bend a lot forward, we start coming out of our posture. I'm not sure what iron this is. It doesn't tell me what iron it is in your notes, but let's just take a look at the motion and see what's going on. So we do that lower plane line, and we can see that this is pretty close to 90 degrees. So that's a pretty big forward bend. Now, the problem with that is your shoulder tilt now has to remain perpendicular to that spine angle. So let's draw where your shoulder tilt should be, basically there. Now, good luck trying to maintain that posture in your backswing. We can see immediately once you start to turn, that left shoulder comes on out. Now, obviously you're trying to turn a lot more, and to keep your posture, to keep you in that green line, you are going to have to feel like you're increasing your tilt. So your left shoulder would have to feel like it's going down to keep you in that posture. Now, the problem with that is when you're going down, you are going to start to stretch this whole left side of your lat. Your hips are going to start to stretch. The lower back might get some issues going on here. So to be more comfortable, to alleviate that and to allow you to turn, we do stand up. So at the top of your swing, we can see here, I mean, look at the difference. That is where your new shoulder tilt is and your new spine angle. We're going to draw this in our favorite Barney purple. We can see that as your new spine angle. So I think there's more to this than just saying, oh, I dip up and down. It is a complete stand up. So let me know if you're flexible. Let me know if you have some issues with your flexibility, because that could be a big deal here. If you're not flexible enough to stay in that posture or strong enough in your core, we do stand up. So it could be an issue there. But let's take a look. You do a decent job of compensating by going back down. So you can see you do find your original spine angle. However, it is a lot of this. And again, that comes down to weight distribution, comes down to muscles in the back. Are you able to rotate that? But we can see by doing this, we have lost a lot of our area here, and now all of a sudden that club comes from the inside. You do a really good job though. I mean, look at this. Look at the way you maintain your spine angle through here. So I don't know. I don't think it's a stretching issue, because you're able to hold your posture through impact and past impact. Well, past here, you can see your shoulders do remain in your spine angle. You have to let me know. I mean, you can see here as you take that club back, the club does go pretty far back. So that face on view again would help to see where you break away from your rotation. And is it a ball position issue? Is it a weight distribution issue? Is it a tilting issue that you have to now stand up to get away from that? So there's just a lot of things at play here. Yes, I would be working on this with your golf coach. Mention to him that it could be a flexibility issue. Do some range of motion testing. I don't know if you can do some ADM work, some TPI work to see if you have a limitation in your rotations, in your rotator cuff. It could be a bunch of other things. But overall, I think the swing looks pretty decent for what it is. You definitely are an athlete. You can make it work, but there's just not enough for me to diagnose anything. It's a tough angle and there's no face on. So if you do have a face on, do me a favor, send it for next Sunday when we actually go at our regular time at 6 o'clock instead of going early because I messed up on our scheduling. I hope that helps you. Send me another email, send me another video. Let's see who's next here. Now this gentleman, I think this is one of Steven's students. Let me see if I can find. Is it this? Nope. Sorry, you can see I'm not prepared for today because I have to go early. You know what? Let's just go. Let's come back to him. I'll find who that is. All right. I know this is Steven's son-in-law, I believe. And Steven, thank you for sending me these. I appreciate it. It makes this a lot easier for us to go through. Now, we've taken a look at Steven. We've taken a look at Steven's daughter. Now we're going to take a look at Steven's son-in-law. We take a look at the motion overall. So let's just look at the swing going back and through. What we'll notice is there is maybe some setup issues at play here and some compensation for that setup issue. I do like the way he tries to keep the handle of the club more towards the center of his chest. However, it is set up more kind of like an iron, which now will create some weight distribution issues. And with that weight distribution issue, there's just not enough to swing on the way up. I know he sent me a down the line, so let's take a look at the down the line. Great video work, Steven, so I appreciate that. Anybody watching this that wants to send me videos, just make sure they're down the line just like this, right by the foot line. Yeah, so there's still a little bit of standing up as well. Excuse me, but let's just take a look at the face on because this is where I think will make the most sense. So we see the shoulder tilting, and we see based on that centeredness, the hands and the golf ball should be right about here. So we do see a little pulling back, and I know that I preach this, but there comes a time where it could be too much. Now, the problem with this is, remember, with the driver, we're trying to swing up, so we don't want to swing down. Now, with this setup here, you can see that the hands are in a position to swing down. So you've brought everything to neutral, which is great. This is a good iron setup where the hands are neutral with the center of the chest. We're swinging down because if you draw a circle around this, you can see that the club will be working. It's, assuming that you maintain everything the same. Here's the center of your circle. So everything will be swinging down before it strikes the golf ball. And if you get a little bit of bump left, and if your tilting gets a little bit more, now you can really get down on it. The problem is this is not an iron. This is a driver. So a lot of pop-ups might occur here. Some weight distribution issues because it's very hard to get behind the golf ball. So I do see some issues with that in the first part of the swing. So let's draw a line from the golf ball straight up to the sky. And let's put a note on this. So it's just where that center of the left pec. Is that your pec? I think that's your pec. So let's take a look on the way back. We see the weight distribution trying to get behind the golf ball. So we do see the weight shifting right with the upper body. Not a lot of hip sway, which is nice. So we can see the hip sway line. If you put a hip sway line at home, you can see, do you sway your hips or do you get over? So pretty good. It just basically turns around the hip, but the upper body does lean back, which is good. So now we have seen the head has got some spacing to where that golf ball is. Now, if this can stay where it is, and we just basically turn and tilt from this motion while our upper body stays behind the golf ball, you can start to make the swing work. However, because there's been a lot of upper body motion to the right foot, he has to feel like he's got to push it over to the left side, but he doesn't necessarily push with the lower body. We see that the whole body goes back left. Now, the problem with this is he's taking that ball position, which was in the center of his left pec, and he's moved it now, and it's basically in the center of his chest. So this is, again, a good iron setup. Now, the problem with this is his hands are still swinging down at this point. So he's hitting down on the golf ball. And in order to compensate that, he's going to have to throw his hand slightly, try and get some loft on that club and try and, get the angle of the club to kick up as he strikes it. So a lot of weight distribution the wrong way. So I think if you want to get this corrected, Stephen, is have your son-in-law change his setup slightly. I do like the fact that he's doing this to the center of his chest. So do that with the irons, 6, 7, 8 iron. Just do that with those. That'll make a big difference for you. But let's move that ball position slightly more ahead. So we're going to take that new ball position. Let's put it right about here. And now if we adjust our tilting, so make sure not to turn to get to that ball position, because I see when people start to play it off their left foot for a righty to get to that club head to the golf ball, they start to turn their shoulders to get it. And now all of a sudden you have an open shoulder and your path is going to be thrown off, and then you have to compensate that path. So instead of turning to that shoulder, just go ahead and connect your hands to the center of your chest and tilt to that shoulder. So that's going to bring your right shoulder more down, but it's not going to move your weighting to the left foot. You're not going to be opening up to that target. So a little bit of tilting. So if we can get the tilting, so if your club shaft can be here, your tilting is going to be more like that. So the hands will still be in a similar position. The hands will be moving over slightly. So we'll draw the arrow's going to be moving over slightly here with the hands. The shoulders are going to be tilting down, but the center of the chest will be moving back. And then this golf club will meet that golf ball here. So now, if you take a look at the pattern that you're trying to create, if we draw that same circle, we can see the center of this circle on its axis is there. So now as you get to the golf ball, where's that club going to move? That club's going to be moving up, which is what we want. So just remember, you at home, when you're setting up for a driver setup is everything. I mean, the setup is everything in the golf swing, no matter what you do. Man, no matter what you do, you could be chipping, full swing, 3/4 punch shots, whatever it is, your setup will either get you to have a good motion or a compensatory motion. So in that setup, alignment, like where are you aiming? That's the biggest thing I see that's missed. And secondly is your ball position. Ball position and alignment are the two biggest things that are overlooked because we're so focused on grip, we're so focused on posture, we forget the ball position. Ball position dictates everything. Here's a good example. A pretty good setup, just a bad ball position. Now, if he tilts that ball position towards his left foot and then adjusts his tilting correctly and maintains that connection with his hands, now he's going to be good to go. He doesn't have to all of a sudden feel like to get the weight to the right side, because if he just turns and tilts from here, so he has that great right hip placement, right? So we know he has that right hip kind of situated there, but look at where he is now. So where do you see that's different or the same we're actually looking at? So if we draw a blue line, look at where he is now. He is matching where we would like him to be on the setup. And all that is changing the ball position and then your setup around that ball position. And then from here, we focus on staying back with the upper body. So the upper body stays back while the lower body then drives towards that target, which will then increase your tilt even more. And that's the key, because the more you can increase your tilt back, the higher your launch angle will become, because your hand path will change to be higher as you strike the golf ball. So there is a point that you don't want to play that golf ball too far to the left. Okay, so let's do this again. So let's say we all of a sudden say, hey, I'm going to cheat the system. I'm going to play this golf ball way out in front. So I'm going to put the golf ball way out there and tee it up really high. Then I can really accentuate that tilting. Now you got some issues, because not only is it almost impossible to hold this and get in that top position and fall back even further. So look how much you'd have to fall back. But now you're messing with your path, because anytime that golf ball is starting to be outside of your left foot, your path is going to be leading left all the time, because it's not only we're working on this circle, but we're also working on down the line. So if your ball position is too far out to the left side, by the time your club gets past it, it's always going left of your target. Now you have a path that's left. Any sort of club face deviation to that path, man, that ball's all over the place. So you have to be very careful. Same thing with putting the ball too far in the back of your stance. I see so many people put that ball back there trying to cheat the system, gain some distance. But now your path is always going to be in the out because that ball position is too far back. And that's going to give you an issue with basically where your club face is related to that ball position. So don't take this lightly. What I'm trying to say is ball position and then make sure you're aiming correctly. But let's take a look at the down the line because we can see a result of this. We see here's the lower plane line. We can take a look at the setup. Let's draw a quick little setup deal right there. And we can see, is this a relatively stable setup? Okay, so there's the arch of the heels, and this is where the centeredness is. So we can see, look at how much the body weight is behind the center. So this already, there's an issue because now he's going to have to, not only does he have a iron setup with a driver, but he's weighting so far on his heels that he's going to have to do something to compensate that weight. Typically, when you have weighting on your heels, you have a hand and arm manipulation to accommodate for that. But we know what he does on the face on. Let's just take a look at what happens on the way back. So we start to see some immediate shoulder tilt loss to help that turn, to keep that club on that lower plane line. And then we get to the top plane line, and he does a pretty good job at the top plane line, but we can see how far behind that centeredness is. It's okay, but you want this gap to be a little bit closer because now your hands are connected to the center of your swing or your setup, and then things just unfold naturally. So now we have a spine issue, right? Because we take a look at the spine tilt. The spine tilt has changed. So let's get it on a new color. Let's go yellow. So we see how much taller he is. Left shoulder has risen up, and that could allow him to turn more. So now we got a spine angle that's also doing this as well as this. So there's just a little bit of too much of this going on in the golf swing, and a lot of it is set up. So face on, what I want your son-in-law to do is get that ball position more to the left. Don't go outside that left heel because now you're going to start playing with the path issue. So more towards the left side. Get that right to tilt down to connect your hands. I like the way it's still centered. From this view, pull those feet back. We're not going to change the angle much. We're just going to pull the feet back. So in other words, if we clear these lines and if we go to here and redraw that setup. So there's one, there's two, arch of the heel straight up, and then we look at where the spine angle is. So we can see this is where the arch of the heels need to be to allow the room for him so he doesn't have to create some room. He doesn't have to stand up at impact to create the room. So don't change the upper body. We're not changing from here up. Leave that alone. It's from here down. Scoot the feet back. Straighten them out a little bit. And then if you need to start adjusting the tilting with the spine, go ahead. But you can tell that we don't change things in the swing. Specifically when I'm working with students, I don't necessarily go to the swing changes right away. I'm looking at why are the swing changes, why is the swing like that? And it's most likely because something in the setup is causing the swing to occur this way. And we have to look at, okay, what is the cause for that? Let's cure the cause. And then we start to work on the swing itself. And we move it in different directions based on the new setup. So just a quick tip for everybody at home, everybody watching this very early live stream. I apologize again. Check your setup. Go work with somebody. All right, next up now, I know this gentleman's name, believe it or not, is Ben Hogan. Ben Hogan is I believe a student of Steven, is a regular on the show, sent me this as well. So Ben Hogan, let's take a look. It's a cool name. I wonder if his parents were golfers. They had to be golfers. Very compact, very powerful. Same sort of thing with the setup. Very toe-based setup. And we see that the weighting is stuck on the toes, specifically at the top of the swing. You can see that left leg kind of spin out because the weight's stuck at the top. Let's see the face on. Yeah, look at that weighting on the left foot. I'm not saying it's bad. Not saying it's wrong. It's just what it is. Yeah, I see that this swing can potentially just hit some contact issues. Sometimes that could be heavy. Sometimes that could be thin like there. It looks slightly heavy. and off the toe too. So we're getting toe shots, heavy shots, and thin shots, mostly off the toe though. Okay, so usually when you start making contact off the toe, off the heel, there's some path changes, and it's usually standing up of the spine angle or dipping down, but mostly standing up with the amateurs. We have to look at why you're standing up. So let's take a look again at this setup. So we go lower plane line, upper plane line. Okay, and let's look at the heels straight up to the sky in Barney purple. And we can see, yeah, so this is definitely toe based. So opposite of the gentleman we saw before, where he was heel based. So toe based players, there are plenty of really good toe based players. Toe based players can really only work if they have a very steep swing. And you can see the steepness that his swing already is trying to set up by look at that top plane line. It's going to be fairly steep. Does he get to that steepness naturally? Let's take a look. He's a little bit flat. So the one issue with toe based, unless you have longer arms, like gorilla arms, we can get that club steeper and work with it, you're going to be compensating a lot. And we can see that there's a big compensation here. The arms don't quite get that high, although they are short and connected, which is good. There's a lack of turn. If you get too much on your toes, it is hard to turn around because you're so busy trying to stay upright on your toes that you can't turn. You kind of lock your turn. So then all of a sudden that limits your range of motion. And we can see it's not a very long swing in regards to his turn. And the hands do a good job of staying in that turn radius. So they don't, usually when I see people stop their turn, their arms and hands keep going back to help that turn. But this is not the case here. So all in all, it's a pretty good motion. But if you take a look, let's zoom in so we can get this a little bit closer. So if we take a look at the hips, we're going to watch how the hips lose their posture once I get these lines sorted out. By the way, I just installed 32 more gigs of memory, so no more crashing. Let's take a look at this impact. We see how he starts to push into it, and we completely lose this position here, and we're starting to stand up. So we have to ask, okay, why is this the case? So we know that he is a very toe-based player, and with toe-based players, they can either be steep and get away with it and remain toe-based or not. So let's take a look at, there's the arch of the heels. And let's see, where does the arch? Okay. Okay, so this is how you want to take a look at this. So we're going to draw a yellow line where the centeredness should be. Okay, so the arch of the heels should be there based on this setup, right? Now, this all has to do with arm length ratio, torsional ratio, so it really depends. This is just for educational purposes. So before you change this, Ben Hogan, email me. I want to make sure we do this correctly. But this is to help you at home recognize some cause and effects. So the reason why this is very important, like where you set your centeredness, everybody's center is completely different. There's no universal center. It's basically where you are positioned. So this is his center. Now, the reason that yellow line is there is watch the center of his hips. Now, this is basically where the center of his body is. Because that spine angle, because the arms are there, that hip is going to try to find that center, which is going to eventually get to, let's draw this in red, it is eventually going to get there close to impact. So if we go down to impact here, as he starts to drive into, starts to stand up, look at where the center of the hip is now. It has found the original setup of the golf swing. So that's why setup is very important, because your hip joint will always try to find the center, because all it's trying to do is keep you upright. And it's very hard to manage your body weight when your setup is not correct. So ideally with that setup, the weighting, because it's on the toes, it's going to be very hard for him to push from the toes to the back left heel, because his weight is too stuck on the toes to start with. So in order to get that going, it's just a completely different position, completely different feeling, and it doesn't make sense for an athlete. So athletes try to find the center of their hips all the time, because it's just a motion that happens very fast. Golf swings, you don't have time to think specifically from here to here. It's 0.1 to 0.2 seconds. It happens in a blink of an eye. And most of this is just neurological muscle systems kicking in to help you hit the golf ball. So this is what I see that does cause a lot of crashing to the golf ball. When you crash, you can try and make up for that by dipping your right shoulder to try and maintain your hand path to change for that crashing. But when you do crash, that's when you have to throw your hands slightly more because you've stood up at the golf ball. And you can see, look at the new spine angle. I mean, this is a huge difference from where it was. So his shoulders are going to try to maintain that tilt, but they actually are relative to the original spine angle. But there you can see how much they've tilted down relative to the new spine angle. So just remember the shoulders do tilt down at impact. If they start in this position at impact, they actually increase their tilt by 20 to 30 degrees depending on what club you're hitting. So they need to have room to tilt. If you're crashing into it, they can't tilt. And when they can't tilt, guess who has to save the golf swing? These hands. And that's why we see every now and then he hits heavy ones like this one. He hits thin ones like the other one we saw from the face on. And we can start to make some contact issues with the golf ball on the relative to the club face. Some could be toe, some could be heel. So I think this again is a setup issue. Now, do we just go ahead and say, hey man, just change your setup and all will be dandy? Not really, because this swing is so ingrained, and unfortunately, it was ingrained with a slightly incorrect setup. But let me just put it this way: just because it's incorrect doesn't mean it doesn't work for you. Because there are so many really, really good players that have incorrect setups, that are incorrect textbook setups, but they were able to compensate successfully and they made it work. And we don't change anything. We just help them small changes. This one is in between. You can tell that he's able to hit the golf ball. He could probably score really well sometimes. And sometimes it's just going to be all over the place because it's a very timing oriented motion. And we don't want timing oriented motions. We don't have time to hit thousands of golf balls a week. Eventually, he's going to have a family. He's going to have other hobbies, and golf will suffer. So for this one, Stephen, you just want to try and get a new setup for him. Try not to be so toe-based. Try to get him the feeling of pushing from the right toe to the back left heel at impact. Feel like the upper body's staying down slightly. Now just be warned, he is going to hit this thing very heavy because his hands have been so used to throwing to try and help save as he crashes and stands up. So give them a warning. It is going to be very unusual, but anything you can do, even if it's inches, you don't want to go ahead and change this whole swing completely. Just gradually get him in that new setup, gradually get him to feel the weight's more centered on his feet so he can learn how to push off that right foot and get to the back left heel so he doesn't spin, that top position where his heel spins out of his toes. That's all from that weight distribution. And even here, you can see there, look at that left toe, the left heel. It just spins out because all the weight's stuck on the toes. So I hope that helps you. I hope I didn't lose you in any of that. If you need any more information, let me know in the comments below. Thanks, Ben Hogan. Love the name. Let me know if your parents do play golf. I would imagine they do, giving you a name like Ben Hogan. That's pretty interesting. Let's see. Who do we have here? Gotta look at my notes. I didn't create any sort of docket just because I was supposed to go later tonight and the tree lighting ceremony got in my way. Okay, we have Stephen Montgomery. Where's Stephen? Somewhere here. Is this Stephen? This is Stephen. All right, Stephen, let's take a look at your swing. Let's watch this. Love the hair, man. Wonder what golf course that is. Okay, pretty good motion. Similar situation with standing up like the first gentleman we looked at. And again, this could just be a lack of rotation or your body just not as flexible as it once was. But a lot of good things happening here. Hands are staying connected to the chest pretty well. They're staying relative to the turn, which is good. So not a lot of manipulation with the hands and arms, and that's key. If you can have compensatory motions with the body, but keep the hands and arms out of it, you're going to be fine. It's when the compensatory motions of the body creates an issue with the hands trying to make up for that. That's when you have an issue. So far, it's looking good. Is this the face on? Let's see. Ooh, a little driver. Let's take a look at the driver. Wow, look how smooth that is. Great looking swing here. So same situation here. You can see that the If you let me know, Steven, if you let me know if you have any rotation issues or flexibility issues, any knee injuries, hip injuries, foot injuries, if you guys send me videos, just let me know as much as you can because I want to address this. If you do have hip issues and I'm telling you guys to turn more, it's not fair to you because you can't physically. So let's go to the face on again because I think that's a really good, excuse me, the down the line again. We're going to talk about how this swing actually works pretty well. In his notes, there's nothing. So we're just going blank here. So let's take a look at the setup because this looks a little bit more athletic with the setup. And a lot of this is due to setup and how you can maintain your posture if it's set up correctly. And let's go. We can't do Barney Purple just because of that. Yeah, look at that. So there's the difference, guys. So if you see the first swing, the second swing, the third swing, you can see how the setups were just a little bit off. That centeredness was not supported by the arch of the heels. Here we have somebody that's supporting it correctly. So it could just be a fluke. It could just be the way he learned. It could just be the feel as an athlete to get in that position. And because of that, we're probably not going to see much at impact. So look at that. We can still stay in that posture. So that's actually really good. Look at that. So he's able to at least back here. And that's the key. So he actually increases his lag. He increases his spacing. So here we have a lot of turn and raising up. So I get it. Some of us need to turn to stand up to turn because we're not as flexible as we once were. And we do see this in people that are over 50. We start to see them standing up to get that turn because it's hard to stay in your posture to get that turn just because of the amount of flexion that does require on the whole left side. So this is okay to happen. And we can see by doing this, the key though is can you keep your hands in front of your chest? And he does a really good job of keeping his hands in front of his chest. So if we were to draw like a little square here, that's his chest area. As long as your hands are somewhere there, you're okay. Even if they're on this side, as long as you can reroute them somehow, you're okay. But this is actually a really good position because from here, we can see his triangle is pointing at least in the correct position. So if we draw where that line will drop down naturally, does he do it? Yeah, look at that. The hands fall right down that line. So he's able to pull that line back. Now you might look at this and say, well, Tony, that's laid off. It doesn't really matter because it's relative to his tilting. So if you look at the tilting, his new tilt, because he had to stand up to get some turn, his tilting and his spine angle is different than when it was at the start of his swing. So related to that new tilting and spine angle, it looks really good. It's not laid off at all. So now he's going to go back down. He's going to reestablish that tilt. But look at that club. It stays on that lower plane line right down to impact. It looks really good, slightly off the toe. And that's expected. When you're trying to get your tilt back, your path might all of a sudden shoot left and pull that club inside. But the key thing is, look, he's still on that back brace line. He is still in his spine angle. He has increased his tilt from where it was supposed to be at the top of his swing. And we know that. Let's do this and see what that tilt number is. 142. And yeah, so it's 22 degrees. So that's pretty good. So anywhere between 20 and 30 is pretty good. And as we strike the golf ball, now he can come back up because of that, maybe that range of motion. But now he comes back up. And so we see like this is a good compensation because this is mostly body compensation and the hands and arms are staying out of it. They're not being involved too much. They're just along for the ride with the body. Where you start to see the big errors is where you start to move your body incorrectly and then the arms decide to try to make up for that and try and get your arm back to where it should have been. Sometimes it's better just for your body to learn how to manipulate itself and let the hands and arms just go along with the body. And Steven, you do a great job of doing that. Now, can we improve upon this? Yeah, you can always improve. So that's why it's very important to tell me some notes because I don't know if it's a range of motion issue. If this was me, first thing I'd do, let's do a TPI test on you. Let's see how much range of motion you have. Maybe you're dominant one side versus the other. Maybe you have some issues that we can address and help strengthen your body so you can remain in that posture more and utilize your good hand-eye coordination. But then we're going down another rabbit hole. It's like, okay, well, do we really want to change the body positioning because your hands do such a good job of going along with that body positioning that the hands have learned to release that club in a certain area based on this. So if we start to change this, now your hands are going to have to learn a new impact position, and that may take some time. And do you want to spend all this time and effort learning something? And it's going to take a long time because your hands are so reactionary. Hands are the hardest thing to change because it's habitual. We can't change to hold on to angles, to release angles. They just do it based on where that ball position is and based on what your body's doing and how it's moving through the target. So just be very careful with this. I think it's a good swing. Personally, if you were taking lessons from me, I'd be shying away from changing much just because it looks like you can get the ball pretty consistently struck with the way you compensate. Face on, let me just take a look at your setup real quick. Gotta make sure I got enough time. Okay, yeah. Same thing. I mean, you got a really good swing. I love the tempo. Okay, so setup, let's make sure it's where it was. Okay, so this is a pretty good setup too, in terms of where the ball position is. So we see your shoulder tilting. We see those hands right down. Look at that. Pretty good. Hands and the golf ball are connected together right through the center of the chest. So this is really good. It ensures that you are probably going to hit more up on the golf ball than the first gentleman that we saw today because his golf ball was placed more like an iron. We take that motion back, so we do see the weight distribution. We know you stand up to help you get that turn, so we do get the stand up. Our spine angle is still facing back. Now the key is, how do we maintain it so we stay in that position? We get that lower body to drive, upper body falls back and tilts under. So look at this. I mean, this is really impressive what you've been able to do. Let's put a new spine angle here. So look at that spine angle. It looks like it's manipulated that way, but look at your hand path. From this point on, your hands should ride along with that spine angle. So your hands are wanting to go up here, right? So we see those hands move back up. Now this is important because now we know we are hitting up on the golf ball. We don't have to manipulate so much. So here's a good example again of somebody that has learns how to manipulate the body to suit the cause, as opposed to somebody that manipulates the body plus the hands make up for that body manipulation. Here we have somebody that the hands and arms stay relative to the body manipulation, and it makes it for an easier journey. It just happened to work out for him. Good swing. I really like this swing, Stephen. So I want you to get back to me after you watch this. Let me know if you do have any limitations in your body turn, any issues, because if you don't, would I recommend changing this? No, because the amount of effort it's going to take for you to not stand up and then your hands learn a new roll, it's just not worth it, man. It's going to take you so long to learn that new hand release action. Work on your short game. But I don't know what your weaknesses are. I don't know what your strengths are. So I think I'm just about done for today's live stream. I apologize. This was supposed to go at 6 in case you're tuning in right now, but I completely forgot. We've got a tree lighting ceremony for the holidays, and I'm taking the family down there, and that is actually at 5:30. So I wouldn't be able to make it down at 6 o'clock. So I just went live randomly. So I know there's not a lot of people watching this at the moment. If your video is featured on here and you have a question for me or you have a comment, leave it down below. If you would like to appear on this, we usually do this every Sunday at 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Send me your videos face on down the line. Besides my regular videos during the week, I do this to help you guys out because I know golf lessons are expensive, and this is at least one way to learn your cause and effect. But just watch the videos I do every week because I try my best to educate you on cause and effect, and everyone's swing's so different. But I do hope that helps you. I will see you next week. Look out for more videos, and I appreciate the support. Thanks, everybody. Take care.